getting contact on that? Is that negative?
Yes, we do have everything's fine.
Okay, great.
So, hi everyone, I'm Wei. As you know, I'm a visiting student from Shanghai Conservatory in theory. And the topic of my presentation today is also related to Shanghai Conservatory. And I will introduce a unique style of pitch organization from the Chinese composer, a chromatic system with Chinese national characteristics. This new chromatic system is neither the simple conversion and connection of different traditionally pentatonic systems, nor the free use of Western 12-tone techniques, but a unique system from the Chinese composer Ding Shande. The picture is of Ding giving a piano concert in 1935, which was also the first piano concert in the history of China. Ding was a prominent figure in the first generation of Chinese pianists trained by Shanghai Conservatory. And he made essential explorations and contributions in the field of piano performance and piano composition. He was the deputy director of the conservatory and the chair of the composition department in the last century. Since Ding is also a pianist, so the last part of my presentation is to propose a visual and quantitative means of performance analysis for his works with the help of set theory. The first keyword in this compositional system is pentatonic. And when we talk about Chinese music, many people immediately think of the term pentatonic. And when you hear the jasmine flower, you know it's a Chinese tune. Is it just because it only uses 5 notes? If I lower the E and the A, a semitone, and the melody becomes from the jasmine to the sakura. It suddenly Japan. And so for Chinese composers, the most national characteristics are based on a pentatonical thinking, which means taking the major second and minor third and a 3-note row combined within the pentatonic scale. As the primary organization note. And also, when many people think about the pentatonic, and the first thing that comes to mind is the music of Debussy. Almost all researchers agree that Debussy's music is full of oriental mode. And Debussy's pagodas, on the example, due to its pentatonic features, is often regarded as a typical representative of Debussy's piano work with oriental colors. And the co-melodic theme begins in bar 3, is built on a B-note pentatonic system. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, and G sharp. through the various voice levels of the work in the form of prototypes and variations. Although full of oriental color, Debussy was still French. So from the melody, we can see we have just said the 3 notes row. Composed of major second and minor third. But the melody emphasizes a progressing fourth. And its background is a very traditional B major triad. So let's see the authentic Chinese, how they do it. So this is a Ding Sonata. On the right hand, we can see a very typical E major pentatonic. And on the left hand side is an E major triad plus F sharp to reflect the major second in the pentatonic scale to highlight the characteristic of pentatonic thinking. So now, since the pentatonic system takes the relationship between the major second and minor third as a basic pitch moving low. In other words, the pentatonic eliminates the tendency of semitones because there's no leading tone. So how do you establish a chromatic system through this pentatonic system, even a 12-note system? So it's necessary to establish a specific combined complementary system here to reflect a transpositional combined in 12-note system. This is the number 8 of Ding's 16 Studies for Piano published in 1988. This paper can be divided into 3 parts. And the first part is based on the C-Do pentatonic. And the second part is transposes this into the E-Do pentatonic. And the third part transposes to the A-flat-Do system as the end. Reflected in the complementation and combination, because from the perspective of forming a 12-tone set, the pentatonic scales of C and E and the A-flat have a total of 50 tones, and 3 of them overlap repeatedly as a bridging tone. Remove the repeated and intersected tones, which are precisely 12 tones. Forming a cycle. This kind of cycle of third is another prominent figure of Ding's chromatic system. So the kind of third can be understood by a sequential structure. So what is sequence? I think Bach can tell you. When you play his 2-part inventions in C major, you should know where a sequence begins and ends, because the sequence is everywhere. It has 3 parts related with sequential relationship. Bar 1 presents in the theme in C major. And bar 7 transposes the theme to G major and flips it. And the third part in the bar 15 transposes the theme to A minor. And the only PAC appears until the end. So, moreover, the first phrase is full of sequential units, such as from the bar 3 to 5. So the sequence aims to reach the end point and to reach the modulating to the G major. So the choice of the sequence distance reflects the composer's intelligence. The three parts of this piece we just mentioned also shows a sequential structure. The third poses as the sequence relation, achieving a unique chromatic system. But why third? The choice of the third is obtained from the symmetric characteristic of the pentatonic set 5-35. Because the symmetrical axis of 5-35 is 2 and 8 as the left figure, which means in a fiddle pentatonic scale that keeps the scale degree 1 and 3, C and E, which called in Chinese a gong and jue as the invariant tone. Two pentatonic system areas can be generated on the right figure. So if keeping the C unchanged, the B flat, A flat, F and E flat pentatonic system can be generated, and we can get the A, J, E, D pentatonic system when keeps the E unchanged. So in these and others, piano suites, preludes, and fugues created a more modern and expanding way within this chromatic system, especially this piece. It's the number 3 prelude Overjoyed. And I have some copies for you because it's too small if you want to look. Really interesting features. It follows a 12-note series horizontally. And vertically integrates to form pentatonic thumb blocks. So basically the first 5 notes form the next overlapping D-flat pentatonic sound block. However, proceed further, it can be found as the lower parties of free 12-note series compared to the upper part, which is completely straight. That is the reason for the overlapping repetition of pentatonic blocks. Under such overlapping 5-35 sets, the third set thereof includes the base 4 sets like 4-22, 4-26, and 4-23. This formal set is heavy to a certain structural and logical relationship. In terms of performance, a very tangled question comes from the first 4 measures of the piece. So which kind of pitch optimization should be emphasized? An overlapping vertical pentatonic block, or a horizontal 12-note series, or the relationship between the 4-note sets. And by the way, the structure of these 4 measures is actually a sequential feature. Even these beginning 8 measures are kind of heavy sequence. And if I borrow the common sense from the harmonic series, the earlier an interval appears, the less tense it is. For example, we could get an increasing tense order in the harmonic series, in which the first interval appears as the octave, and then the perfect fifth, and then perfect fourth, and then the third, the major third, minor third, and so forth. So after assuming that the tension ratio is calculated by dividing the total amount of interval tension by the number of notes, the total tension should be equal to the number of occurrences of each intervals multiplied by a specific factor. The specific factor can be determined by the older number of ladder notes when the interval appears in the harmonic scales. For example, let's observe the factor of the interval, the perfect interval is 3, because it first appears in the position 2 to 3 in the series, and the ladder number is 3. After determining the factor of all intervals, let's do some math tests to get the ratio of major triad. And we already know that major triad has 1 major third, 1 minor third, and 1 perfect. So the total is 6 plus 5 plus 3 is 14. And 14 divided by 3, the number of notes, is the tension ratio of a major triad. So it's possible to present some analysis results about set theory more intuitively and visually in this quantitative way. So go back to this piece. This is a tension ratio of curves of each phrase. And I'm going to play this one more time. When you watch this curve, look to see whether it works. And if not, that's piano's fault. undeniably, these methods, there are a lot of problems with this method because such as how it only considers the pitch and ignores all other factors like dynamics, speed, expressions, and which of course affect tension. But however, I think this resulting tension ratio curve might give the performer some guidance, like it's more valuable than if the performers only knew that the major triad and minor triad is the same set 3-11. Well, that's all I have, and thank you for the time. If you have any question, could
I have a question. First of all, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering about the calculation method there, because if we are calculating ratios, obviously the size of each sample, so how big chunks we consider at one time, is going to affect the ratio. So I see that we would have to make interpretive decisions already in that point. Is this something that you have thought about?
Yeah, I think the first part of my analysis work is to analysis form or structure of the piece, and when you figure out some eye-catching textures in the piece, in the analysis, the piece you will to give the performance, and some eye-catching textures may give some tips for your performance. I have an example for the Webern's Opus 27-second movement, because I have not so much time to present this analysis part, because I have analyzed some eye-catching textures of this piece, and after calculating the tension ratio of these two eye-catching textures, and you will find some structural and logical connections between them. But if you only know the set theory, the Allen fold tells the sets 4-26 is 0, 3, 5, 8. It means nothing, I think. You can't perform like this way. You know the set is 4-26. But if we use the interval within this set theory, using the interval vector, and gives the quantitative and visual ways to show this set and the different sets connection, maybe it's more helpful than only you know the set is and the interval is. Yeah.
So would you say that this could be a good tool, for example, when these obviously gesturally seem very, very similar, these examples you have on right now, so would you say that this would be a good tool in comparing these to one another?
Yeah, sure. Because like this piece, the first eye-catching texture is the appoggiatura in the bar 3. And then the chord texture comes to me at the bar 4. And after analyzing the same texture set, we could get some connections by calculating the tension, and it might give me, oh, it's more tense and it's less tense, and some imagination and some psychological suggestion for the performers, I think.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, I mean, that's a really, really interesting question from our colleague in Finland. And it comes down to the same question that has been discussed in relation to atonal pitch theory for half a century, which is, in what sense can segmentation be anchored in experience or some sort of other very objective view of the music? the only methodological point I would make, which I think goes to Wei's methodology anyway, I mean, you may find the idea of relating the natural acoustic of sound in the harmonic series to ideas of tension. You may find that totalizing and something that needs a lot of thought, you know, because who would have thought that atonality has its basis in acoustic fact? But anyway, in classic pitch close analysis terms, one thing that you can do is distinguish between what in Yale set theory is called imbrication and segmentation. So you can take, and I think in a way this is, I'm just saying what Wei was saying in a different way. You can take all possible dyads, all possible three-note sets, all possible tetras, etc., and plot them onto an intensity curve. And then you can take your segmentation, which will maybe more poetic, it may be more in terms of the composition intention, or it may be in terms of your perception. And you can compare the segmentation with the imbrication. So that isn't an answer to everything, but at least it gives you a methodology for assessing the status of this kind of analysis. Horace, I think. We need the mic.
Thank you. This is all very interesting, and I'd like to know more about it because there's a lot to take in, like everyone. But you mentioned that, of course, it's like just pitch class, tension. There's a lot of other parameters involved in tension, yes. But is there a way to incorporate register into this system?
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought about. Because the Ding piece, the third part is the phrasing. It's higher register, but they have the same pitch class. So it's the same. But I think maybe just a feeling, imagination, like the curve shows. It has lots of factors you need to think about when you perform.
Okay, I have a question or comment, and my recollections are too vague really to articulate, but I try. Because I was in Beijing a couple of years ago in a conference where a number of Western theorists were invited to speak about Western approaches, and there was some discussion, I think it wasn't even a presentation, of a person who was teaching in Shanghai in the early century. He was a German person who emigrated during the Second World War, and he was somehow related to the Schoenberg circle. So apparently he was teaching a modified dodecaphonic techniques in Shanghai starting in early 40s. And would you know if Ding Shande was somehow a student of this person whose name I don't remember, but in any case, he might have been introduced dodecaphonic technique, because what you spoke about was a kind of combination of ideas that can be seen as being related to 12-tone technique and then more traditional Chinese ideas. Is there anything you can comment on this? I'm sorry I don't remember more about this, but if you want to know more, Cedric Neff, the Schoenberg scholar, was organizing this conference, and she probably does remember the name of this person.
I mean, I think because when I think about how to design my presentation today, I just think about, because many people, maybe some Chinese students, they don't know the composer Ding Shande, because he's the topic of my doctoral dissertation, and I think it's a useful way to connect the Western techniques and the Chinese pieces, because the Chinese composers, they learn from abroad, they learn from America, they learn from Europe, they learn some Western techniques, and how to combine the Chinese characteristics with the Western techniques is a hard way, because you want to play the piece like a Chinese tune, like the jasmine flower, not an American flower, maybe. So you need to reflect Chinese characteristics, not a USA way or not a European way. So it's hard, but you need to be modern, because modern is a modern way. You need to be modern and you need to be national. It's hard. So I think this way to connect the Western and connect the pieces for Chinese composer is interesting way and a useful way for others to learn about Chinese music. Yeah.
So Larry, I just Googled. Because I know who you're talking about, and that name was on the tip of my brain, and I was blanking on it. It's someone called Wilhelm Frankel. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah.
But it's also worth remembering, which I didn't need to Google, that Shande, Wei's composer, studied in Paris with Boulanger. So I mean, there's a massive intercultural series of connections here.
Yeah.
You're right. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, because that Shande was in Europe studying, then there's no need to find the Shanghai link for getting introduced to the Lodicophonic and European
But it
techniques.
was there. Yeah. Good, are we moving on mode? In which case, thank you very much for over to Jacob or Jakob. Which do you prefer?
I'm actually starting to like Jacob.